And we can begin. Alright, so we have Lee Sedol as black, playing an older game from 2001. I wanted to go back a little bit farther than that, but the resource I typically use for my games, Go for Go, doesn't seem to go back all that far. Or doesn't seem to have very many games from back that far. I think GoBase had more, but I don't have an account there anymore, unfortunately. So we start out with nothing too unusual, a little bit unusual in terms of what I usually go over. I usually go over a lot of fuseki that each side goes ahead and takes a side, then approaches a corner. Here we actually see the diagonal fuseki. If you know anything about the diagonal fuseki, chances are good that you're probably expecting a bit of a territorial game. Reason behind this is, since we have corners, since we've taken opposing corners, since we've taken opposing corners, it's very difficult to actually get these stones working together to develop a framework. Because of that, we typically see more of a territorial-oriented style here from the diagonal. Lots of fighting, usually squabbling over bits of territory. Black approaches low as opposed to high because he is well aware of what his stones are saying. He opened up 3-4, he's opened up opposing corners, so he's not expecting a influential game either. He's probably expecting a territorial one. Now, suppose for example that, let's just say, white decides to pincer. Those of you who attend either my teaching games or my lectures regularly will know what I have said about this move over and over and over again. What black's options are here, given that he is strong in the lower left-hand corner, rather. So, can anyone tell me what we should expect here? Why F15? Though it seems like everyone's getting the idea, including the 10K. Very good. Essentially, with our corner being strong, you're absolutely right. We can go ahead and jump out. Our opponent, not wanting to get surrounded in the corner, is going to respond. And then we can use our influence to attack, but not just attack. We can also use this to extend from our corner. So we're putting pressure on our opponent. We're threatening to develop. This is fairly good for black. It is because of this that if you study professional games regularly, you'll probably be more familiar with E16 as a response here. Pincer is somewhat of a special move. You know you're getting yourself into a little bit of trouble, but you've either got something in mind, or you just feel like playing a game in which you're going to start a fight right off the bat, and it's probably going to continue for a great portion of the game. Now, this is the actual game. I did not ruin the tree, I'll have you know. Not yet anyway, that comes later. And now white has to decide what he's going to do, because he has his options. He can run away, but just running away allows black to decide what he's going to do. Is he going to follow and try and take the bottom? Is he going to jump out? I should probably label these as different numbers. 1, thank you, and 2. Is he going to jump out and threaten to surround white's group, and or potentially cap white's group in the center at that point, both of which would be very nice for him. Both of those ideas seem to be somewhat not good for white. We need something else. So white shows us what that something else is. He decides to attach. Black has options now. He could feasibly live in the corner if he wanted to, but that would let white connect, so that wouldn't make much sense. He's going to go ahead and hane, as everyone would probably expect. White extends. Now we've got 2 cutting points that we can go ahead and poke at. White takes 1, knowing that if black isn't careful, he'll get them both. And that would be pretty good for white. So black plays the Atari. White seems to be able to get a little bit of development here for himself, which might be good for the top, because keep in mind, if he gets influence here, this upper right 3-4 stone is facing white. So white can go ahead and approach this, and probably not have black pincer him, because we'd find ourselves in almost the exact same situation. White would be strong in the upper left, black would now have a stone that he'd have to worry about. Instead, we see black go ahead and defend his cut point. White responds. Black defends again. Because sure, we could go ahead and keep trying to do something here, get more and more influence, but if we leave these cutting points behind, we know that our opponent's going to use them, especially since this isn't going to kill anything. It's just leaving more cutting points that black's going to have to go back and defend later. So he gets a nice strong position. White has to decide what he's going to do. Because we have to keep in mind that this cutting stone is not dead just yet. White plays out. It's a little bit of an unusual move. Some people would probably expect the Atari, but the Atari is a little bit slow here, especially since it's now given Sente to white, or to black, sorry, to go ahead and take an enclosure and limit how much white can gain on the top. This, and I'm not going to go ahead and ruin a tree, let's just go ahead and say that. If white hadn't played this, black can go ahead and try to push out, and now we realize that white, his last move is actually a defense. It's not an Atari, it leaves some agi there, but black can't simply push out, otherwise bad things are going to happen. So black plays the attachment instead. He's going to go ahead and try and build up the left-hand side. And now the game gets interesting, because what we have is black over on the left that's trying to develop something. We have white with his next move on the top trying to develop something. So now it's just a question of whose development is more efficient. Because the person with the least efficient development is probably going to have to turn around and try to reduce. This is a bit of a special move too, the 2-space extension. We typically don't see it, well, I guess it's a bit more common these days. But usually it's played when white really doesn't want to be pincered. And when white really wants influence, which are typically the same thing. Now, black does have options to go ahead and still pincer him, but where is this stone going to be going at that point? It's going to be pretty well surrounded by strong white stones. We're not really sure how well that would even survive. That would be a very, very risky move to go ahead and throw a stone in there right now. At the moment, black is developing the larger area, yes. However, there is still options available, and this is again where I wish we had a one-button clear tool. But with the large knight, or the large Chinese Puseki, sorry, the high Chinese Puseki, it's still very much open. So black plays calmly, sorry. He's not going to go ahead and risk everything on an invasion that he's not sure if he can live. He's developing a nice little left-hand side for himself. White's obviously going to develop something somewhere. He has said where he's going to develop it, so he's not going to get jealous over what White's trying to develop. He's going to go ahead and potentially develop the right-hand side, because with another move, we can see a little bit of territory there for black. But it's also threatening to go over his position. This also limits White's development. So Q14 is a very nice steady move here. Unlike the aggressive, I would go ahead and say borderline unreasonable play that many of us might consider at M17. White settles, picks up solid territory. He can still develop a little bit if he wants to. But right now the area is uninteresting, because even if he jumps out, he'd only be laying claim to, you know, a few extra points. That's way too small to worry about right now. As such, black has Sente. Where do you think black should be playing? Should be considering playing now then? We have some really aggressive players. N22 going all the way over to O3, trying to develop an enormous bottom side. Desan and Shig pretty much saying the exact same thing as N22, lay claim to that bottom side. Interesting, interesting. Any other ideas? Indigo says R6. That does potentially try and develop a right-hand side. You are quite correct about that. But the larger side is the left right now. Someone said K10. Desan said K10. We are going to pretend that he did not say K10. Because we do not speak of Tengen in my games. No, we do not. Granted, it looks like a reasonable move. It's threatening to make a small knight out to the center to really expand. Well, black decides to go ahead and play C8 instead. And the reason why he did this is because, yes, you can go ahead and keep expanding. But the annoying thing with the high Chinese Puseki is you do have your normal approaches that you can potentially go ahead and try and play. However, you have other options available to you as well. You can try and slide under the high move. You could potentially attach to it if you still had room on the top side of the board here. Doesn't work out quite so well. So white would probably like to go ahead and make use of that little problem with the framework. So black simply goes ahead and says, I'm going to go ahead and limit the problem there and make it even more difficult for my opponent to actually approach my corner. Because now, against the Chinese Puseki, we would generally not want to play either of these two moves. Now that there's even less space there, it makes it even less attractive. So he's turning his influence into some solid territory. Now, white's turn. I'm sure we're probably on the same page with ideas there, probably the reverse of what we just suggested. Why not c5? Why not c5 when? Amy TW. Or Ami, I don't know. Instead of c8, instead of c8, okay. Let's go with that instead. A couple of reasons why. One, we still have this, which does work rather nice. We can attach, obviously, and try and limit life here. But one thing that we don't want to see is white able to obtain life in this particular fashion, where he's able to just go ahead and hook up to his group and make a living group there. We probably don't want to see white coming out and then having to worry about cutting points. That's also playable. We probably also don't want to see this Hane, which is now really, really annoying, because it gives us the exact same problem as before. If we play this way, then there are cut points that we have to worry over, that we really, really do not have to want to worry over, because we can't block this. If we try, as we can see here, we get killed. So we'd have to make something like this, where we're just letting white do exactly what he wants, connect up, live on the left. So there's a lot of Aji still there, even if we go ahead and enclose. So black said, forget that, I'm getting rid of all of that Aji, making it harder to actually approach me. No problem. And now it's white's turn, Sentei obviously. I haven't been asking, but it's fairly obvious right now that nobody really has weak groups on the board right now. I mean, the top is pretty fine. All nice and connected. The left, black just got rid of Samaji. So, white has Sentei to play the next move that he feels is the largest, since he doesn't have to defend anything, and because there's nothing to really attack, besides frameworks. That's up to white. White can go and continue trying to develop with a large move, let's say, at k4, as was recommended for black earlier. Could try and do that, yes. Then he'd have development in two different areas. That would certainly be possible. There are downsides to that, because it is harder to actually approach that cornerstone now. So if we play... Actually, it's going to get complicated. I'm going to go ahead and show that in a minute. I'll show it right now. If we go ahead and actually play that, we might see black continuing to expand, and now we kind of feel that we actually have to throw a stone back here. But since we can't even get a base, hard to say what's going to actually occur here. I mean, I wouldn't really expect that stone to live very well, if at all, at this point, because we can't play the normal Joseki, clearly. I mean, most that we can do is something like this. And that's not alive yet. So white plays a shoulder hit. Now, can black play elsewhere? Maybe, but allowing white to go ahead and play the follow-up move, or an attachment, that would begin to give white fairly good shape. So if you're playing to enlarge your framework, playing away and giving your opponent shape within your framework doesn't seem like the right idea. So obviously black's going to respond. And now here's where we see another interesting play by white. White decides to go ahead and play the Hane. I think everybody here has the same idea on what black should play now. Because whenever we see the Hane, we instantly want to cut it. Indeed, knowledge. So what is going on here? Does white simply have no idea that he can be cut? Chances are that's probably not what's going on. White knows he can be cut, and as Desan and RJM are saying, and in 22, he wants to be cut. Because if we're cut here, this is a new group to harass. It's got 2 liberties. We can use that to begin getting shape, as mentioned. And black does cut it. I mean, he could have decided to go ahead and play elsewhere, obviously. But the trouble with that is... Hello. We can still make shape here. Glad you enjoyed them. So black cuts. Oops, sorry. What about e6 for black? That would be a bit vulgar. Here you're just you're trying to force white to protect the cut, which is actually making you weaker. Because now you have to respond by defending your e6 move, otherwise, you know, one Hane and that's no good. But now that he's been made stronger, white can keep take advantage of your weaknesses, as we can see here. He can go ahead and quickly escape if he so chooses. He might go ahead and pick up an eye first, down in the corner. Essentially, you're making your opponent stronger for no good reason. As as mentioned, we usually don't peep cut points. You can probably think of a few instances where you do, but by and large, yeah, we don't. So white attaches. Going to do that, obviously, to try and get ready to Atari the one stone. So black defends it. If we defended this way, lots of forcing moves for white, however which way he wants to go ahead and play this. Probably not this way. White gets to Hane. Black protects. And then white decides he does not want to remain inside. And he continues following black out, which allows black to go back and Hane underneath. Now white's not really living very well here anymore. So he needs shape again. So he attaches to harass those weak groups. Or stones, rather. And here we have an interesting decision made by black. Because obviously these stones can be captured. But we see white Hane and Atari. If that was Sente, then this Hane is bad. But black decides to go ahead and give up those stones in order to connect underneath. Because if he did not give those up, then this can't be played. Because we'd have to take, and then we'd connect, and that's as far as we can go. At this point, we pretty much have to run away as quickly as possible. Because white's fairly well alive in the corner, and now we're being harassed all over the place. This game's just turned around for white. So black says, forget that, I'm going to connect under, you're taking my 2 stones. what is interesting about that? If anything. It could be boring, I don't know. Anything special with this decision? White is not 100% safe. Exactly. Did White capture 2 stones? Yes. Yes, he did. But we can clearly see where he needs to get his second eye from, sorry. So as long as this stone isn't taken, Black can still attack this. Which means it might not be a good idea for White to play elsewhere yet. Which is why we see him continue playing locally. Now White's a little bit more alive, because we can't really throw in and expect to keep him looking for eyes. Because we can throw in here. White will connect one way or the other, probably on bottom. And then he's safe. There's nothing more we can do there. So now that we've established that White's fine, Black plays elsewhere. Because there's no point going back here and either A, ending in Gote, or worse yet, giving yourself a weak group that can now be attacked. I mean, even something like this would be kind of bad, because then White can go ahead and go on the offensive. So Black approaches. Many options to choose from here. Go ahead and label them real quick. A, B, C, and of course, one last one. Playing elsewhere is always an option. But White decides to go ahead and play C. Reason being is pretty simple. White took a look at what Black's trying to develop. This area on the right-hand side. If we go ahead and defend... Did I already play it? I did. Good. If we defended A, then it becomes a lot harder to go ahead and get any kind of group on the right-hand side, any kind of invasion there. Most we can really do is, you know, maybe keep it low, something like that. White side didn't want to play that way. And he wants a group over there right now. Make sure that Black's territory doesn't keep increasing. And even here, there are many options. Black can play A or B. He goes with B. You can play A, and this is probably the Joseki everyone knows. This gives Black influence, but the question then becomes influence for what? I mean, White wanted to make sure that Black's not getting the right-hand side as territory, and he succeeded fairly well at that. But why does Black possibly want influence here? It doesn't seem to go with any of his stones very well. So he plays the Hane. Again, many options. And this time, Black actually plays one that I don't think is a Joseki at all. White decides to play the Hane here, with the idea that, I guess, we could potentially play this way. In which case, I guess we can go ahead and play something like this. But Black didn't want to play that. Black decided that he really does want to live here. So he attaches, and White responds. And he attaches again. And White defends. Because now we've got a problem. If White had defended here, then this becomes a little bit harder to play. because that cutting point is no good. I mean, there's this, which unfortunately doesn't work right now, as you can, well, you can't see my screen, but those of you watching the video later, you will be able to see that clearly this goes to white. However, it's still horrible algae. Another problem with this is here. We can go ahead and make white really, really heavy. Get reasonable shape for ourselves, both in the corner and outside. And now we've got a problem with white, because we need an extension here. Black's shape is fine, so we can either attack us, or reduce the center, whatever he wants. That's also a bit of a problem. So white went ahead and extended. Black gets to live locally. We knew he was going to. Again, not forcing because black's fine at the moment, so he goes ahead and reduces. Showing very good timing here. He's not getting caught up and just responding to his opponent. He's very careful to ask himself what's large after each and every move. What's large? Is he in trouble? Where are the weak groups? Things like that. He's very, very good at keeping his eye on what's important. Because many people here, I'm sure, would probably have simply responded to this out of habit. And then you might lose your chance to go ahead and reduce the bottom. So black gets in a bit of a reduction, then escapes. That is a really good question. That is a really good question. I don't want... One thing that I always try to avoid whenever I'm going over a game is saying that someone has clearly made a mistake. But... it looks too small, however I look at it. The only thing that I can say for that move, really, is that unanswered, it ensures that white is in no danger. Because he can always slide under and get a bit of a base for himself there if he has to. But that's really about all I can say about that. Black maintains his position out. White moves to unsettle him, because he has to. He was reduced quite a bit. If black gets out of this completely unscathed, then yeah, it looks like that would probably have been a bad move. He has to play aggressively and attack this group. Unfortunately, this is a bit of a double-edged sword, because as black is being made stronger, we cannot forget these stones. These stones have no shape right now. They're reasonably okay in the sense that they can capture one stone and essentially get life pretty quickly. Which is why it's no surprise to anyone that black immediately plays there. He gets an eye for himself and puts the pressure on white and off of him. White says, I can just connect up, and then my group's fine. Black says, no, that group is disconnected. Go do something else. So he does. He gets a base for himself. He has to. He's not connected. Q2 made B still attackable. Well, black really isn't that attackable right now. Later, yeah, I suppose so. Well, he doesn't have to run, because white has the weak group is the problem. As long as that group is weak, black doesn't have to ever run. He'll just turn around and assault white, and force him to defend himself. You'll never have a really good attack on black at that point. Especially since, you know, one move and black's alive. So you need to ensure this can't be played. You need to surround black. You need to make yourself strong enough to actually play these on the right-hand side. It's just way too much. So yeah, I don't really see black as being weak there. Anyway, white responds. Black defends. White fixes his shape. And now both have reasonable shapes in the corner. Unfortunately, this was Gote. And what I just mentioned is white is still weak on the right-hand side. So if you were to attack the... You are ahead of me, N22. I was about to say, if you were to attack this, where would you play? N22 said R9. Everyone agree with N22? Are there better places to play? Oh, we've got disagreements. Alright. Broadwidth says Q9. What is Q9? Q9 says... Oh, we're going to threaten to cut that way. Okay. RJM says P11. Oh, cap. Interesting. Basilicon says R9 is in fact correct here. And we're going to agree. This is very, very severe. Not only are you threatening to cut, but you've got the descent afterwards. And the descent can't really be blocked. Because what are you going to do? He's going to connect underneath on either side. So you're in trouble no matter what you do here. Which is why white says, well, obviously connecting is the death of me. So I'm going to go ahead and try to connect over. Because that one stone, not really all that important right now. Options here for black can go ahead and cut, or it can descend. If we cut, however, we have liberty shortages. This, for example, is going to be Sente, because you don't want to lose your stones. This also can potentially be Sente, depending on if this is a reasonable variation or not. I don't really think it is here, it's just giving away a lot. But essentially, depending on the board, you'd still be having a lot of Aji for your opponent. Here, not so much. There's one thing you can do. You can connect, and he's going to connect, and that's really about it. Makes things a lot easier to predict. White connects, trying to force black to go ahead and connect up as well. But black hanes. White double hane. Black gets some profit for himself. Make sure that black can't connect under. However, we can't really do much else. And the reason being is if we go ahead and keep pushing in, then this is going to get cut immediately. So we've got to defend this. Oh, I'm sorry, did N22 say something? N22 said R10 looks better. And R10 looks better? Oh, here. Yeah. Oh, no. Better than R8. Oh, better than this? They're still pretty bad because they're really strengthening black, or I mixed up completely. They're really strengthening white no matter what you do. Yeah. So white connects in order to escape. And then we have a move that I absolutely loved. Because we have this group here, and I think every last person watching wants to attack this group. But there's a problem, a really, really big problem, with attacking a weak group like this. Does anyone know what it is? You probably heard me say it a couple of times. Anyone have any idea what the problem with attacking this group is? Maybe. Looking for something a little bit different. I think you're on the right track. No. Something more obvious than that one. Problem with attacking this group right now is it knows it's in trouble. And when you are attacking a group that knows it's in danger, it's obviously going to defend itself. So the chances of you actually being able to, let's say, kill that group are vastly reduced. So the question then turns into what other people have already mentioned, is where are you actually going to gain in your attack? Because that's how things actually die in games, typically. Not just from one-on-one fighting, but you give your opponent something else to worry about while you're attacking. That's when things actually start dying. Because if they actually go ahead and try and respond to whatever that other thing is, then the other group wasn't defended, and that's no good. So black found something else to attack. And that's this cut point. This is one of the areas that white can potentially connect up to. This is also setting up for a deeper invasion into white's territory. So this is a cutting point that white probably wants to respond to. But if you do that, you're making black stronger in the center. So white defends. Black strengthens himself a bit. And then we get back into this. Oh, what's up with B17? It's a reasonable question as well. In my opinion, is it a large point? Yeah, it's for whoever controls that corner. And the game is fairly close. I think. Did I estimate that right? Yeah, the game looks like it's fairly close. So those points aren't small in this particular game. It wouldn't do, for example, for white to go ahead and make himself perfectly alive in the middle, only to go ahead and lose the corner and thus wind up losing on territory. So he went ahead and defended his corner. I also probably think that that was probably time-related on black's part. He probably wanted more time to read out the middle. Though I can't say that for sure without actually seeing the game record. Anyway, white defends. And then black begins an attack, but he's not attacking directly again. Even with this turn, he's threatening to go ahead and reduce the bottom. He's setting up for a very large attack in the middle, and white has to decide when he's going to stop responding to black's moves, allow himself to be reduced in order to defend the center. And this is the kind of thing that you want to do in your own games. I mean, if you decided to simply go ahead and try and surround this group, you have absolutely no idea if you're going to succeed. And after that, you're always left wondering, okay, what's the point of attacking weak groups? I can never kill them, and I don't get anything out of them. That's why these moves are much more interesting. Because here, you see where you're getting, where you're actually profiting from. Sure, white can defend himself, but he's going to get reduced. And this is the kind of thing that Dons typically kill Qs with all the time. White strengthens himself in the center. Black secures his territory. We see an attack immediately play... Oops, shoot. Bye-bye, Mr. Tree. I had almost completely succeeded in making that nice and straight. Ah, sigh. Forcing move first, and then take. Oh well. I think I have only made it through one game without ruining the tree. Oh well. There'll be a second one eventually. So, white takes. Black threatens to surround. Exactly, I think that was the only one. White strengthens himself. Black pushes out. White threatens to come in, connect up, and expand at the same time. Pretty reasonable move, in my opinion. I mean, he's trying to do three things at once here. I mean, he's giving this group another way to connect. He's threatening to come in, and he's threatening to expand. Black is under attack. That's true. A little bit. A very little bit. Not as dangerous as you think, and we're going to see why in a minute. I don't want to go over the sequence, because we're actually going to see it in a minute. Black creates Aji. And this, in my opinion, is very an interesting move. Because his response to that white trying to do three things at once is try to capture two things at once. White says essentially that he wants to go ahead and develop and reduce and make sure everything's alive. And black's going to go, okay, fine. I'm going to make this simpler. Something's going to die. You pick what it is. This group's obviously larger, so white defends it first. And now we're seeing white stones being swallowed up. White has absolutely no chance to simply passively connect. He has to aggressively try to seek out a better solution. Otherwise, those stones are going to be dead, and he's going to lose the game. So he cuts. Black seizes the Aji. Again, forces white to connect. But he doesn't connect. He saves his stone. So black surrounds. So the question then becomes, who's going to kill who first? Because this is obviously a capture race. White cannot live locally. Black's got problems. So what's going to happen here? On the bright side, H8's alive now. That's not going to get captured, so that's something. White connects. Can anyone tell me why? Why did white connect here? Why is it Sente? I'm seeing liberties and I'm seeing Sente. Good, thank you. P12 Aji. It's exactly what I was looking for. And I'm going to go ahead and... Well, I've already ruined the tree, who cares? Let's say you go somewhere else. If black decided to, I don't know, go here and live, for example, then white's going to be alive too. Because we can't just go ahead and capture this, because that doesn't work. And if we try and capture it this way, that doesn't work out too well either. So black responds by defending and removing a liberty. White cuts. Obviously black protects. Tries to come in. Black defends. And now we have this. If this is a ko, this is a really, really huge ko. So the question becomes, is that going to be a ko? Eddie says no, and black says no as well. Black plays here instead, because cutting is gote for white. Here is where white goes ahead and resigns. But let's say he didn't play that. Let's say he went ahead and cut. Well, the first thing we're probably going to realize is something very, very annoying. What is the very, very annoying thing we're going to realize here? Is it Seki? I don't know. What is it? Is it Seki? Is it dead? What's going on here? Indeed. If you went ahead and played this, just trying to live, then yes, you've obtained yourself... Sorry, excuse me. Then you've gone ahead and lived on the right, but this is now Seki. However, this kind of ruins your plans a bit. Because you have to connect. If you play here thinking, ha ha ha, black can't do this, otherwise he's killed himself, that's true. But that's now dead, because we go ahead and capture. So this move ensures that it is no Seki for white. It is toast. Because white has to connect, black gets to form his eye, and after that, there's nothing he can do. So this was very well fought by both players, I thought. Yes, toast is a technical term. So this was well fought out by both players, I thought. We have white here trying to do multiple things at once, which is, you know, the hallmark of any Don or professional player, trying to make their moves have as many meanings as possible. We have black responding with the exact same idea. A bit simpler of idea, simply taking two groups and saying one of them gets to live and one of them gets to die. Very high-level fighting, but it's also fighting that we can all go ahead and actually follow through. And these are the games that I really like to go ahead and study. Ones that have nice principles that obviously we can all use and improve on in our games, but ones that we can clearly go ahead and take a look at while we're studying them. It's not so far over our heads that we're perpetually lost throughout the entire game. So I hope you all enjoyed this game. I do remember studying this one when I was trying to make my way through the Dawn ranks. And always being amazed at this last little fight here. I hope you guys all enjoyed it, and I will see you all week after next for another lecture. So until then, take care.